Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session for British Fencing's Learning Week. Thank you for joining us. And a huge thank you to Ellie Gennings, who joins us from Bournemouth University, who's doing a lot of research into sort of positive coaching environments. I'm really excited for this presentation. And again, thank you, Ellie. And over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I suppose the only person that I didn't ask was Erica. Is what level of coaching are you at? What age group do you coach? Just because that's helpful, just for me to know.
Good to see you all. Thank you very much. I am fairly new to fencing. I have started with the martial arts when I was 9 years old, and it's going to be 30 years next year. I was coaching a very diverse group of children in India, Slovakia, and in Scotland,
Wow.
but that was in the martial arts. And because I'm converting into fencing, I'm starting from absolute scratch with the fencing as with the sport, as a sport person or athlete, but as well, I'm very much interested and indulge and immersed into fencing coaching. So my primary interest, and when I worked as a yoga teacher, Iyengar yoga teacher, I was focusing on medical conditions, children. So children with physical disability or any form of mental health issues, suicidal, a post-traumatic syndrome, so mental or physical medical condition, children. So below 18, it's my group. But as I'm saying, it's completely new for me. But I was able to pick up on previous sessions of yours. It's completely different way of coaching and studying how to become a UK coach. You are paying attention to details because of amazing samples of children you have here. I call it samples, but you have amazing samples of children from many different economical background, many different ethnical background as well, all sorts of different continent, cultures, cultural heritages, religious aspects. So there's a lot to consider, and as well, you are still trying to be incredibly inclusive for
Mhm.
children which are facing any physical disabilities to include them and to feel completely natural in their environment. So you are breaking the barriers, which is really good. The psychological, logistical, or
Yeah.
sociological, social psychological, or for example, economical psychological as well. So all of those factors you are really nicely considering, and that's new for me. So there's a lots of studies, not just the theoretical but academical level as well. And I would love
Brilliant.
to keep in touch with you because I'm researcher as well, independent
Oh,
researcher and
perfect. Yeah.
academician, and I'm focusing on sport as a tool of prevention of criminality. So I think
Okay.
we might sort
Yeah,
of
absolutely. We should
catch up
connect
later.
after this for sure.
Yes, so
Perfect.
the level's completely brand new,
Okay.
as in within the UK coaching and conversion from martial arts to fencing.
Perfect. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And some of the things that you've touched on, we'll certainly talk about a bit later in the workshop. So, just quickly, I wanted to introduce myself. So, I'm one of the academics based at Bournemouth University, and I teach on our sport coaching and our sport management degrees, as well as teaching on our brand new masters in safe sport. My area of specialism centres around children's well-being and really looking at approaches to coaching that centre children first before they are considered athletes. And at the moment, I'm working on some really exciting projects with various organisations. But part of what I'll talk a little bit around today is the project that I'm currently working on with the International Olympic Committee. Um, so we're going to jump straight into it. So the title of the workshop is around creating positive coaching environments. And I thought a really nice place to start with is just hearing from yourselves. What does that mean to you when you hear that term? So if you havenent joined the Mentimeter, I've put the QR code back up on the screen, but you should be able to submit your ideas, just a phrase or two around what does a positive coaching environment mean to you? Okay, nice. So we're getting lots of different things pop up on the screen already. So growth mindset, being safe, supported, having fun. I love that. Chris, I forgot to mention to you at the start, I had a meeting with Liz a couple of weeks ago, and we got along like a house on fire. Um, okay, fantastic. Inclusive, free, fun, diverse expression, being seen and heard. Oh, okay, fantastic. So just based on this, probably a lot of what I'm going to talk about, it feels like you already recognise. So that's really fantastic. So thank you for those submissions. Um, so I wanted to do a bit of context setting before we jump into it, really. Um, so from media reports, from white reviews, we know that the context of both high performance sport and grassroots level sport, there is a lot of evidence at the moment to suggest that we are not doing right. From many different sports, from many different countries, this is a global issue. And the idea of today's presentation isn't to be reactive to all of these different things. It's about how can we as coaches be proactive in making sure that the environments that we create for our athletes are free from abuse, are inclusive, are supportive of young people and older athletes' well-being overall. And that's really important for me in the language that we use is that this isn't about being reactive, it's about thinking how can we be proactive so we don't need to think about any of these things that are on the screen now. So organisations, because of all of these things, are under increasing pressure and are being held accountable for maintaining cultures that promote what we call safe sport. And safe sport is a term that is being used increasingly. So you've got the new IOC, International Olympic Committee unit, which is focused on safe sporting spaces. In the research field, we talk loads about safe sport as a term. And even at Bournemouth, we've got our first Safe Sport Masters starting this September, actually. But the idea is that sport, before anything else, should be a safe space for athletes to be in. So on the screen now is the academic definition of that, which you may or may not be interested in. But the reason that I wanted to include it on the screen is to highlight that this is something that everybody has the right to. So whether you are an adult or a child, it's your right to access sport that is both physically safe and psychologically safe. And as adults, I think we often prioritize those kind of physical aspects of safety. So looking at the equipment we use, the spaces we use, making sure that our safeguarding policies and procedures are up to date. But a lot of my current research is highlighting that there are some key differences between how we think about safety and keeping our athletes safe, and what's important and what matters to younger athletes in particular. I wanted to really quickly kind of differentiate the term safe sport away from safeguarding, because safe sport in nature is much broader than just safeguarding procedures and policies. So we've got environmental and physical safety, which is on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, which looks at things like anti-doping, injury prevention, those kind of physical things. We've got relational safety, which is the circle in the bottom left-hand corner of my Venn diagram, which really focuses in on the relationships that athletes have with people in the sport ecosystem. So that isn't just coach-athlete relationship, it's about relationships with parents and coaches, it's about relationships with, it could even be referees, umpires, for instance. But importantly, a lot of like my work sits in optimizing sport. So I've already mentioned human rights once, and it's something that I'll probably continue to mention throughout the presentation. But sporting environments that are inclusive, are accessible, that are fair. And so safe sport is way broader than just safeguarding policies and procedures. Another important thing that I wanted to highlight is the differentiation between both physical and online environments. So I think we often fall into the trap of thinking about physical environment. So where do my athletes train? Where do they compete? How do they travel to and from training? And those things are all really important. However, we also know that the online space also needs to be safe for our athletes. So whether that is a high performance athlete who has got a social media presence, or their performance could be under scrutiny from the media, right down to athletes on a talent pathway where potentially their parents are keeping their social media up to date with everything they're doing and almost treating them like a small professional. So what I've got on the screen now are six different things, which are all important for creating what we would call safe sport. But what I'm really interested in is how you on the call would rate these different things in matter of importance. So the first one's athletes can share ideas with their coach. Let me put the QR code back up on the screen. Um, the second statement is coaches, organisations, and parents should be trained in safeguarding. There are clear rules, policies, and safeguarding procedures. Fourth one is that athletes have supportive friendships within their team. Fifth one is around having independent reporting and accountability systems. And the sixth one is having safe and secure changing rooms at training and competition. So if you are able to, you should be able to slide those different things on your phone if you use the QR code, just to show kind of how you think that they are ranked in importance. It's not that none of them are important, it's just the level of priority, I suppose, you give to them. So again, if you scan the QR code that's on the screen, it should let you do that. There we go. Okay, so I can see that things are now starting to move around a little bit. Okay. Okay, nice. So at the moment, it seems like top one, you've actually really surprised me, which is nice, is that athletes having supportive friendships within the team is one of maybe the most important things for creating a safe sporting environment. And right down the bottom, we've got independent reporting and accountability systems. Okay. So this is really interesting to me because you've done the opposite of what I thought you might. So I'm going to move on to the next slide and we will come back to this a bit later. I'm going to skip past that one. Oh, sorry. So importantly, when we are talking about safe sport, um, from my perspective in today's workshop, I'm talking mostly from an athlete's point of view. But one thing that's really important, I suppose, to consider is that it's not one person's duty to create a safe and positive coaching environment. It's impacted by everybody within that sporting ecosystem. So, from the athlete themselves, some of their characteristics will certainly influence whether they feel that they are safe in a coaching space. But also the relationships they have with other people. So that could be you as a coach, their family, their peers, but also at an organizational level. So what are the rules and regulations at a club? What are things that are stipulated by British fencing? But also, what are some of the overarching beliefs and values in society about what a high performing athlete should and shouldn't do? How much of their life should they have to give up in order to be an elite athlete? And so it isn't one person's responsibility. And from this workshop, it's not your one responsibility as a coach to ensure that your athletes feel safe. It's about a group community effort, everybody working together. Flicking back to this slide, so what we've seen a lot in our research at the moment that we're doing at Bournemouth University is that athletes that we have spoken to really emphasize relationships in order to keep them feeling safe in sport. Relationships mostly with their peers, which is why I've put athletes having supportive friendships within the team. And that is something that to them is one of the most important things that keeps them feeling safe. And usually, what I find when I talk to adults or coaches is that relationships in a team aren't really something that we think is all too important for keeping athletes safe. I think usually we jump towards safeguarding, having clear sign in, sign out procedures, making sure that websites are up to date with safeguarding information. So I'm actually really impressed and happy to see that from this, the ranking, you've identified that actually relationships are really important. And so when we're talking about a safe and positive coaching environment, one thing that I'll talk about a lot later in the workshop is how can we ensure that we promote relationships between athletes? How do we make sure that they are supportive of each other rather than feel like they are competitors? Because if they're in a talent pathway, they often are those things. So the next statement on the screen, I'm going to pull up the QR code again, and hopefully you can see that, is from your perspective as coaches, in your athlete sport, when do they feel safe? What are some of the things that you can do as a sports coach to help them in feeling safe in their sporting environment? So again, you just scan the QR codes and share with me some of your ideas. We've got providing clarity, being supportive, encouraging reflection. Oh gosh, got quite a few coming through now. Supportive, comfortable to accept support, feel included. Is anybody happy to elaborate on something that they've written? And by unmuting and talking?
For me, if somebody is feeling anxious or insecure, they may not feel comfortable to allow somebody to support them. So they may keep they want to stay at emotional, psychological arm's length. So feeling comfortable to accept support when needed felt important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably where building a relationship first is really important. Okay, fantastic. So close that. So what I have on the screen now is a photograph which was taken last year during governmental discussions around a new health bill that included women's maternity services and what we can provide them in healthcare for maternity. Can anybody identify an issue with this photograph?
There's no women involved.
There's no woman. Okay, perfect. And so that's important because as women are the people who experience maternity services, they are the one that are impacted by these decisions. It's probably fair to say that there should be somebody in that room with lived experience of maternity services. The next picture that I've got on screen for you is a slightly busier one, but this is a photograph from discussions around children's sport and PE provision in England. Can anyone identify a problem with this photo?
There are no teachers, PE teachers or sport person or anyone from the industry recognizing who would be able to advocate. So no one from that particular academic
Okay.
or industry
Okay. Well,
related.
there might be. We don't know that from the picture.
Again, there's no
But
children.
yes, oh my gosh, who just said that? Marco, you're my favorite person ever. You're the only person to ever say the answer I'm hoping for. But the point of this photo is to illustrate that there are no children in this picture. And children are the recipients, the end users of sport and PE. And so if we're going to be making decisions about their world, their experiences of sport, I would argue that they absolutely should be involved in decisions that are made about them. The previous photo I showed you was a genuine one of discussions around Women's Health Bill. This one I've just pulled off Google to illustrate my point. But we're not particularly good at including children in matters that affect them in general and in sport, because often what we see is that sport is made for children rather than children. We don't think of them as benefiting from sport. They're more as part of the sporting system, and we need them in order to generate athletes to move forward. And so a lot of my work is around including youth voice in matters that affect them. And at the moment, what we are doing is we have a project funded by the International Olympic Committee that's all about asking athletes who are on a talent development pathway, aged between 15 to 18 years old, what does it feel like to be safe in sport? What's important to you? What matters? What can we do from an organisational level, from a coaching perspective, in order to keep you safe? Because we know a lot about what makes people feel unsafe. We know a lot around athletes' reflections from the past. But actually, 15 to 18-year-olds who are high performance athletes at the moment know their experience best because they are the ones that are currently athletes. And so this project is all about trying to understand how we can support them in our various different roles. So I've been delivering workshops across the country. I've been having a very nice summer doing this. And one of the things that we've asked young athletes is what might an athlete think, feel, or do when they do actually feel safe in sport. And on the picture on the right-hand side, I've just tried to just pull one example. So in the middle of this lovely drawn athlete are characteristics of an athlete who feels safe in their sport. And I think if I said to you all at the start of this call, would you like your athletes to be confident, to be competitive, to be positive, to be relaxed at training and at competitions? I think as coaches, you probably will say, yes, I'd love that. How do we do that? And so what's really interesting to us is that athletes are connecting feeling safe to performing better, to being better at their sport, in addition to enjoying being there. And so when we're thinking about positive coaching environments, what might be really important is to consider how do we keep them feeling safe. The next thing that we asked athletes to do in these workshops, and while these pictures are only a small amount of data, we've spoken to over 50 athletes across the country who are at national and international levels of their sport. Athletes have told us overwhelmingly that it's relationships. It's not the kind of safeguarding policies and procedures, which are absolutely important, but potentially only tell one piece of the puzzle. So for us as adults, that's definitely important. But for young people, they care more about knowing the name of their teammates. They care more about having a relationship with their coach where they feel like they can talk to them, they can share their opinion, they can have a say on their training. And so one of the overarching messages from me from this workshop is all centered around how can you challenge yourself in your coaching to provide time and space to help athletes connect with each other. It doesn't have to be about fencing, it can just be in a much more general sense. But in what ways can you challenge yourself in your coaching to do that? The other element of the workshop, and I suppose the other key takeaway for me is around athlete voice. And one reoccurring theme which came up was the idea that being heard, being able to share their opinions, their thoughts in training about their sport was really important in order for them to feel included, to feel overall sense of safety. And so this next question, I'll pull up the QR code again, asks you, can you see the QR code? Oh, no, sorry, I keep moving it. So it's two statements, and I just want to get a sense of understanding about how comfortable or not you are right now as a coach with providing space for athletes to share their thoughts with you, but also are you comfortable with letting them have a say in decisions that affect them at training, at competition? So I'll just leave that open for a little bit longer. Okay, nice. Gosh, you keep surprising me. Before I move on to the next slide, is anyone happy to talk about their experience in doing this type of thing? Because so the reason I put these questions up is I think when we think about what maybe more traditional coaching looks like, it's very much more emphasis is placed on the coach to know everything, to instruct, and to lead in that sense. Whereas we talk a lot with our sports coaching students at university about kind of the flip side of that, about giving athletes choice in sessions, about hearing what they have to say and letting that impact what we then choose to do. And that kind of butts heads with what traditional coaching looks like.
I think one of the things that I really want to do in my coaching from beginner to as good as I can go is to bring out the well, sound kind of bring out the soul of the person in their sport.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to be the best they can be and the happiest they can be. And from just I work with kids anyway. I do we run a play scheme, so that's why I have to go back soon. And
Okay,
so
nice.
from very young, when we were talking about a voice, you know, they can be 5 and they can have a really good opinion. And so when I run the club or I think the lead coaches at GB, they're very we want to hear what every fencer thinks of the session
Okay.
and how they felt it went, how they want to improve, how they what didn't go so well, and it's constantly part of our process.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's really good to hear. And I think the value of having however many young minds in front of you and sort of tapping into what they thought and their experience adds so much more than just an individual personal reflection on how the session went.
And
Thank
I also think a thing that really seemed to go down really well at the pathway was also putting one's own vulnerabilities out,
Mhm.
and it really connected with the group who were talking about. So when you're sort of saying what didn't go so well, if you're just listening to their um, worries and not saying your own,
Mhm.
um, and you could feel the connection building over the weekend. And so I wanted to make sure that I was same my vulnerabilities too.
Yeah, amazing. Because that also shows that you are a person as well as a
Yeah.
coach, doesn't it? And it enables that connection. Brilliant. Thank you, Marco. Erica, you put your hand up first.
Thank you. So the first one, provide a regular space for athletes to share their thoughts with me. I have two experiences, one with a boy, one with a girl. The girl, she was having a menstruation, and she asked me, this was in India, she asked me if I'm okay to coach her while she's menstruating. So this was very great, because obviously there are some stigmas in around the world, even here in England. So I have reassured her parents first as well, because her parents were asking if I'm okay to coach and teach, because I was teaching that girl as well history and geography. So I firstly reassured the parents that I'm very happy to teach their menstruating child, so she would be able to attend the school, so her attendance would not drop, because that time I was not able to facilitate online teaching for her, that I would be recording myself and she would see it during her menstruation online. So I firstly reassured the parents, because they were unsure if I'm okay, because they were not sure if it's okay to send their child to school while she's menstruating. So I reassured them that it's completely fine. And afterwards, the second, because I was a yoga teacher, I reassured them that there are different yoga sanas in sort of different physical variations, which we do because there are some yoga poses and as well the exercises which we don't do while the females are menstruating. So I have acknowledged them with the reclining and restorative positions, which she would be able to do during that class as well, so she does not have to drop off and drop out during that period of time. So that was the first one. The second one, I had the practitioner which was on a wheelchair, and 9 months later he was doing really, really very better, very well. But he was not my first one. He was doing it for last 10 years, and we had to sort of let him know that you have to push. And I was not the only one. So it was him that we acknowledged him. Okay, this is all going fine. We are rewiring you, but you have to do the self-practice as well. So we acknowledged him that this is not about you coming to us to see us for 4 hours. You have to do your self-practice and you have to do your bit when you're on your own, and the self-practice is the must. So these were and this was very important, that he was able to as well to come back to us, and it worked really nicely. So the self-practice and as well the regular classes helped. And to feel comfortable with letting athletes have they say in decision, yes, because they had their choice, because they come to me that the first thing, the parents were the ones, and the girl was the ones, she came to me and asked, am I allowed to attend your classes while I have menstruation? And the second one was that he was the one who realized that I'm doing the recovery after the car accident for more than 10 years. And I'm not getting any major results. So what is going on? And that's when we realized that it would be really good for him to engage him more as well academically, and to take a part on the recovery process. So maybe these are physical related decisions, but many of them, the first case is as well very much mental and sociological, where you are not reassuring the athlete, but who is guiding and who is governing that athlete. And in many cases, if it's child below 18, it's the parent. So the communication between a teacher and as well, or the coach and the parents or the guardian is very important. So they would be as well sometimes to reach out, because they might be trapped children in a situation where they can not help themselves. So it's up to us to be the safe adult for them
Yeah,
as well,
absolutely. Thank you
to
for
let
sharing
them
both
to
of those
yes to
examples.
let them voice to speak for themselves as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I think your first example around the young athlete who was menstruating is emphasizes something really important around. So we often talk about the idea that it's important to hear from our athletes, and we can certainly ask questions and expect answers, but the space we provide in order for our athletes to feel like they can voice something is really important. And so you've obviously provided a space where your athlete feels like they can come up to you with a more sensitive issue and express that. And that's testament to the coaching environment that you've created. So what I wanted to share with you on my next slide is this is a lot of information, but there are a lot of resources that exist in this space that provide examples, support, suggestions, ideas around how you can include youth voice in coaching practice. So one thing that I always point my coaching students to is the Sport Ireland Ethics online coaching workbook. So it's a really nice interactive resource that gives lots of different suggestions for how to do things like icebreakers or how to dive into deeper topics with your athletes. The Youth Sport Trust Toolkit also has some really brilliant ideas. So if this is something that you think, actually, I could challenge myself to include my athlete's voice more in training, there's plenty of resources that you can look through yourself and decide what may or may not fit in with you in your coaching context. The only other resource I really wanted to highlight on this page was in the sort of top center. I've got the Quality Coaching Toolkit, Coaching Performance in Life and in Sport. And this is a Canadian resource, but it's a reflective workbook for coaches to download and use almost as like a reflective guide, which centers not just youth voice, it's much broader than that, but it's about creating safe coaching environments. So again, if it's something that you think in your own time you could work through or you'd want to look into further, that's a resource that I would point you in the direction of. After the workshop, if you can't find any of this or want to access it, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. My contact details are on the final page of this presentation. So thinking about including athlete voice, the open question that I have for you all, if I move that down, is if you asked your athletes tomorrow one thing they'd like to change, what do you think they might say? If you were to provide the opportunity for them to comment on training, the sport, what do you think they would want to change or do differently? Being mindful that this is a recorded online workshop as well. It might be that you don't know, and I don't know is a very valid response. Okay. Fine. So in that case, I think maybe that is an action point after today is to have conversations with your groups about is there something at training or at competitions. It could even be something around, I don't know, kit or rules or code of conduct that they might change. I think not knowing is a good thing, but that maybe also could be a sign to say, well, let's try and find out. You have to interview now. Train more after training. Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Feeling like your athletes might want to train more and have time together after training. Interesting.
Yes, I really recognized that. So when the training was over, they were like, oh, and they were looking forward for the next class. So maybe catching up with them after curricula or after training.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And then my next question is another open-ended question for ideas to be submitted to. And that is, what is one way your governing body could help support you in this space to include athlete voice, to promote safe sport, positive coaching environments? Is there something that you think you could have help or support with? And potentially this is a space to share that. And this is about emphasizing that it's not your sole responsibility as coaches to do all of this work. It's that community, it's that whole sport ecosystem whose role it is to help support and grow a safe sport culture. Okay. Fine. It might be that this is something we talk about once the recording is stopped as well. As in like a workshop together. Okay, interesting. Ask athletes about involve them. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to go to work now. I'm really enjoying this, and I have to go.
No, that's fine. Thank you very
But
much
thank you
for what you've
for having me.
contributed as well. Bye.
How do I go? Leave. All right. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, brilliant. So these are things that, well, I mean, Chris is on the call, so he can see them, but these are certainly things that we can feed back as well. Oh. So one of the final messages, I'm going to wrap up now, really, is, as I've just mentioned, the bigger picture is that safe sport, positive coaching environments is about everybody involved in the sport, coaches, referees, support staff, organizational management, and athletes themselves. And it's not one person's sole responsibility to do this. And in summary, I think when you're thinking about creating a positive coaching environment and you're thinking about safe sport, it's more than just safeguarding. It's for athletes, quite often it's about the relationships they have with people. So how can we provide space for that in our coaching sessions? And listening to voice is certainly one way that we can help build and protect that positive coaching environment. On my final slide, I've got, so you can either connect on LinkedIn if you wanted to keep the conversation going with me, or I've put my email on the screen, so you're welcome to contact me either on LinkedIn or via email. The final thing that I wanted to mention is that the IOC project that I have been working on around athletes' voice in safe sport also includes what coaches think about this too. And that part of the project is still open for participation. There are just some online tasks that we would ask you to complete for a lovely £20 Amazon voucher. But that's everything from me. I think we've got a little bit of time if people had questions. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie. That was a fantastic presentation. I was feverishly taking notes, a lot of really strong takeaways.